On your feet! Get them going!
Oh, hi there. Nice to see you out here in this beautiful San Diego day. Oops, got a little dripping from my phone. Mmm, yum, yum, yum. How's everybody doing? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Once again, yes, out in the sun. Oh my gosh, it's so nice out today. I do enjoy watching the weather from California. It's nice to be south of the fires. I know, that's just crazy watching all that stuff happening. Did you see the Malibu Strip? It's snowing like mad here. That's nonsense, Arlene. It's beautiful. The sun's out, the sky's blue. It's like 75 degrees or something. What are you talking about? It's absolutely gorgeous. This is why people are like, why did you leave California? Just really, really, you're gonna try to get me to leave California? It's 21 degrees here, says Arlene. Well, it's significantly more comfortable here. Uh, Buddy says that's about the only thing that I miss about California and Oregon, the weather. Yeah, I mean honestly, it's the weather and my church. Um, if it wasn't for the weather and the church and the beach and the fishing, I suppose there's fishing most places, but Tina says you and the family need to move to Florida. Tina, I'm pretty sure Arlene, you live in Florida too, don't you? Don't all of you live in Florida? No, no, no. Um, Florida has entirely too much weather too. What is up with fire going on? I think it's a lot of arsonists thinking they can just get away with stuff. Although I did see one video of there's like a teenager, throwing a gas can out of the back of their SUV, and someone's like, "Oh, look, they're trying to light everything," but he wasn't trying to light anything on fire. He was just throwing the gas can out of his SUV, which was packed with stuff. So to me, it clearly looked like they were evacuating, and their dad probably said something like, "Get that gas can out of the car." So they chuck it out, right? John's stuck in the Midwest. How's your weather there, John? I'm not trying to, you know, rub it in. It's just I needed some sun. I got up way too late. You can see my hair's not even dry from my shower yet, and I just needed to get in the sun before I started my day. Kind of recharge my battery a little bit. Ah, that's the problem when you have broken sleep. Buddy says it's snowy 5 to 6 inches out here. My goodness. Tina says I'll take occasional hurricane over fault lines, fires, and a messed up governor. I'll take the hurricanes. I mean, I'll take the earthquakes over. Yeah, of all the natural disasters, I don't know. To me, earthquakes seem pretty meh. I've been through so many of them. Fire is a problem. Yeah, fire can be a problem, and the government does suck. But they have fires everywhere. I don't think there's any place. Is Florida made out of asbestos? I'm pretty sure it's not. So you have a fire department, right? So I'm pretty sure you have fires. We just have stupid fires because we have. I don't know. It does get dry, but whatever. Oh my gosh, they just chucked the Christmas tree out here. They chucked the Christmas tree out here next to last year's Christmas tree. I think somebody needs it. Oh, Max, you're out here. Hey, buddy. Hey, come here. Come here. Come here. Don't sniff my feet. Come here. Oh, look, my co-host Max was apparently outside all night. I may or may not still have my Christmas tree up, but the outdoor lights are down. Oh, that's good. Yes, starring Max. Hey. Oh, where you going? Where you going, mister? Come here. You don't want to jump on my lap? Lazy boy? Anyways. Hi everybody. Arlene, Buddy, Amy, Ollie, Tina, DJ, John. Did I miss anybody? Scrolling. I'm scrolling like backwards now. And anyone else I may have missed? Hello, hi. Joe, it's a me. It's a Mike. What was I going to talk about? I really was interested in talking about evolution for a minute here because I'm arguing. Well, I'm not arguing. I'm going back and forth with somebody on the X Twitter right now. X Twitter, meaning formerly Twitter, which is now X, which really works, doesn't it? And I don't understand people who actually believe that dinosaurs turned into birds. It doesn't make a lick of sense that these giant creatures. And here's the thing, Max, come here. He's just like sitting over there. The adaptation of the feathers, the proto feathers, and all of that and whatnot, that would have to come from a single source, right? So like when people are like, "Where did the dinosaurs go?" And they're like, "Oh, they evolved into birds." It doesn't work like that. You don't get feathers. Feathers are so extraordinarily complex and perfectly designed that even if somehow they did evolve, which they didn't, um, it would have been from one mutation on one creature. So you wouldn't have like all these different dinosaurs with feathers, right? It would be one mutation on one creature that that created a proto feather, right? And then that proto feather, which is basically a spine. This is what they call proto feathers. They're just these little spines that they have found on like one freaking fossil. And then that one freaking dinosaur would have to, well, dragon, let's call them what they are, would have to create a population large and wide enough. That one tiny, insignificant adaptation of a proto feather, a tiny little spine, would have to be so beneficial to the species on the whole that it would take over as the entire mother species. Dinosaurs turned into chickens. That's why we have dino nuggets, probably. It actually does make a lot more sense than evolution. So this is how this is the thing. I don't think any evolutionist ever does the freaking math on any of this stuff, because every micro evolutionary stage, again, from whatever little bumps on from scales to proto feathers, that tiny little insignificant adaptation has to take over the mother population or create a population wide enough and vast enough for that little protofeather thing, to sprout a barb. And then that barb has to be so beneficial that the barbed protofeather dinosaurs' offspring overtake the previous population of that brand of dinosaur. The millions of evolutionary stages you would have to get from a single barb on a tiny proto-feather spike to the peacock. Keeping in mind, every single one of those micro evolutionary steps has to subsume the total population of that species in order for there to be enough of that species to create a beneficial mutation which would be beneficial enough to subsume the next population. It is it makes, first of all, it makes no sense with dinosaurs to chickens. Now do the same thing with wolves into, or quote unquote wolf-like creatures into the blue whale. These guys never do the math. They always think, oh, billions of years. Yeah, billions of years, which means you have enough time to do anything you want to do because you have billions of years. Because time is like magic pixie dust. You just sprinkle it on any creature enough time. You sprinkle enough time on a creature and it'll turn into another creature. It's idiotic. Honestly, I mean, no offense to all you evolutionists out there, but you have not thought deep and long and hard about the practical logistics of the stages of evolution, because you say we can see well, you say we can see evolution because you're looking at like a bird that's got a beak that's like a millimeter shorter than another bird, and you're like, look, it's evolution. And I'm like, I know people with noses a lot longer than mine. I don't think that's evolution. I don't think they evolved. And should that branch of humanity, the large nosed branch of humanity, take over New Jersey, he's not evolving into another. I don't know. It's all so dumb. I just, and again, it's these guys are just. Oh, I think Max is going to the bathroom. I don't need to watch this. I'm just going to go in and I'm leave the door. Oh, is that? He got out because I left the door open. I'm an idiot. All right. I'm just going to leave the door open, let him come get it back in when he feels like it. And then I'm going to sneak over into my room and I'm going to close the door. Drop this. Oops. Okay, don't end. Turn the camera off. Where's my StreamYard? There it is. Enter studio. Here I am. Oh, I'm gonna laugh. All right, so that's my spiel on evolution. It was just on my mind, so I thought I would share it with you all today. Semantics adaptation is an evolutionary change. Well, adaptation is a genetic variation within a species. That genetic variation can become prominent in a particular population of that species. Actual beneficial mutations are so rare, you could pretty much consider them fantasy. Like actual, like, oh look, it's a new gene sprouting up in a mature population. I'm not talking about bacteria and stuff. Look, we see the you know what bacteria?
And all the time, all the years we've ever studied bacteria, you know what it always becomes? More bacteria. So you're not an evolutionist, are you, Buddy Rabbit? This isn't horses to cats, just cats to other cats. Yeah, that's the funny thing. All cats have the same skeleton. Isn't that weird? It's just a matter of scale. They all have the same skeleton. There's nothing other than size. There's nothing different about one cat to another. Did Max go back in? I don't think so. I think he's still outside. Yes, which is an evolutionary change. No, I think you're using words that have been drilled into your head. And maybe the word is just too corrupted at this point. So yeah, genetic variation is not evolution. It's not. Sorry. I have heard evolutionists use the argument of the moths that evolved into gray moths. There was a population of moths, and as this city became dirty from pollution, the moths became gray. It's not to say that like there was a variation, genetic variation in the moths, and the moths that happened to be a little like the white ones stuck out so much that they got ate more often by the birds, and the ones with more gray, so the more you matched the pollution, the more your moth family could breed, because you weren't getting ate up by the birds. That's just genetic variation. That is not evolution. That is not evolution. Da, 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 da. And you know what? Talking about cats to cats, this is a funny. So here there's, if you go to Key West, you go to what is that guy's name? Who wrote Old Man and the Sea? That author. The author that wrote Old Man and the Sea. Can you guys remember his name? Drawing a blank real quick. Anyways, Ada Shotgun, Ernest Hemingway. Yeah, that guy. So Hemingway House. In Ernest Hemingway's day, he was kind of a lonely cat lady, except the male version. That's why he ate a shotgun. He adopted a mutation, a six-toed cat, right? How long has Hemingway been dead? How long ago was Hemingway? Was it the 50s or something? Anyways, today there's a lot of six-toed cats there. That's right. There's a lot of six-toed cats. They've all bred from that one six-toed cat. But this is what I'm talking about, when you've got a mutation that is so benign. That's what most mutations are, usually either benign or malignant, or they will just kill the. Most mutations are a detriment to the species. Here you have a benign one, which there's no benefit, there's no harm in having a sixth toe, right? So in Key West, you have at Hemingway House, where they let cats breed with each other, they have, why is it called apologetic? Hoopy fruit. I'm apologizing, Hoopy, for not being too apologetic. If you have any questions, hit me with them and I will apologize. But welcome to the channel. So if you have that, yeah, you can have that little population. But you know what the six-toed cats are not doing? Taking over the population of all the cats in Key West, because it's such a meh mutation, which almost all mutations are. Those, when you can even find an actual genetic mutation rather than, again, genetic variation, like, oh, I've got brown eyes, but my kids have green eyes, and blue eyes, and brown eyes, whatever. Poopy fruit. It originates from the Greek word apologia, which means speaking in defense. Yes, and I am here to speak in defense of a God, Jesus, creation. I am not a pastor, priest, rabbi, teacher, theologian, yada, yada, yada. Just a guy on the internet talking about Jesus. Oh, by the way, I just noticed something weird yesterday because I almost never go to my actual, almost never sign in to my cross-examinations channel because I'm always on Blacklist Universe. And I went in there and I went to go check my hours, and it's like I've got like jack squat for hours, and then I'm like, what is going on here? I usually have 13 to 20 people watching this, and usually you're all here for at least an hour. So why is it that I'm not getting those hours when it's live? It's weird. It's like it doesn't count the views of the live. I don't understand YouTube. And it's not that I care that much about monetizing this channel, but I'm fairly certain that YouTube promotes monetized channels more than it promotes non-monetized channels, because YouTube's trying to make money. And so if a channel isn't monetized, YouTube has no vested interest in promoting that channel. So, I don't know what to do other than like ask you guys if you'll watch some older episodes, just kind of like leave it running in the background while you're out shopping or something. See if you can get the channel hours up to the point where I can get it monetized. That way they'll stop. I'd rather, reach more people. Obviously, I'm not going to make money off of it, or much money. It doesn't really matter. It's not a defense on God's behalf. It's a systematic defense of one's beliefs. I know etymology, but why would a God need defending? Yeah, it's a defense of beliefs, not a defense. Yeah, maybe I phrased it wrong. Sorry. So yeah, that's it. Does any Hoopyford, do you have any questions? No, God doesn't need defending in the sense that, in the sense of him being attacked in any way, right? It's just, it is a defense of our own beliefs. What I believe about God, I am defending. Because people accuse God, says Melissa. That's true. I don't know. Should I change my mind on this? I mean, in one sense, no one can attack God and hurt him. They can, however, hurt the idea of God to other people. And so you're not defending God for God's sake. You're defending God for the witness's sake, those who are witnessing the argument. So it's like, that's, I don't know, man, it's like why I love watching debates and stuff, because it's like you get people on both sides of the argument, and then a lot of people who never hear both sides of an argument because they're in an echo chamber. But then like you bring them up against somebody who really knows what they're talking about, and then suddenly their echo chamber reasoning starts to kind of lose its hold on them, hopefully, and then ultimately you pray that the truth always prevails. But I am happy to take questions from anybody who does not believe as I do. I may not be right. Maybe you're right. Give me an argument to prove me wrong, and let's get at it. Buddy, I can't believe you're defending evolution. It's very strange. Very strange. What if they had feathers in the first time? That's not their argument. Their argument is that feathers evolved from proto-feathers, which are, again, spines. They're scales turning into spines. This must be why we've never had a conversation, Mike. I believe we've been on stream. Apologia is the final speech of one justifying himself or his opinions in court or public opinion. Is the final speech. Oh, it's closing testimony. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. You learn something new every day. All right. Should we just get along to... Nobody seems to be arguing. Oh, happy fruit. All right. Apologetics just seems like a weird word. It's true. That I agree. As if there are things that need apologizing for. If God is real, whatever he decides to do wouldn't need to be defended. Well, I think you understood, right, that it's people, it's a defense of a belief, right? So whatever he decides to do doesn't need to be defended. That's not really what it's not about what he decides to do, right? It's defending the evidence of his existence. It's defending the evidence of the Bible. It's defending the evidence of your faith. It's not directly defending God. Yes, whatever God does is right because God is good by definition. Therefore, whatever God does is right. So it doesn't, in one sense, what you're saying is accurate. It doesn't need defending, but that's not really the sense that we're using the word. We don't use apology the same way because language changes. Yes. Yeah. Modern context of asking forgiveness in a sense of originality, in a sense, but originally it's the final argument of your thesis. Yeah. Closing arguments. Apologetics is not the same as saying, I'm sorry. Yeah. I know. I think maybe that's my fault because when I was saying, why is it apologetics? I said I'd apologize. I'm not meaning that was me being a little bit tongue in cheek. Sorry if that's confusing. Let me get to the Bible though for today. Dang it. Why does this keep doing that? Stop doing that. Close. I'm trying to get this window to just drop down, but it's not. King James Bible Online. Mike confused us. Sorry. Exodus 31 today. Gosh darn, I was actually listening to some of that Exodus 30 stuff yesterday. Interesting stuff. I wish I could remember everything that Chuck Missler was talking about. Bible time. Let's get biblical. Share screen. Maybe if it comes up here, I'll get back to it. Because it's not just popping to mind immediately. Okay, Exodus chapter 31. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, See, I have called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. Son of Hur. Well, that means Ben-Hur. I love that movie. And I have filled him with the Spirit, the original, not the remake. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge and in all manner of workmanship, to devise cunning works, to work in gold and in silver and in brass, and in cutting of stones to set them, and in carving of timber to work in all manner of workmanship. I love this. This is actually the first Spirit-filled person in the Bible. This is the first time in the Bible, if I recall correctly, that someone is described as being filled with the Spirit. And what is it? It's an artist. Bro, an artist. Filled with the Spirit to work, to devise cunning works. I love that. I love that. So as anyone, as people say artists, can't be inspired and whatnot, I Exodus 31, everyone. Happy Fruit says, I'm an atheist apologist. We all know no God exists. Okay. There's so much wrong with that sentence. You realize that you are in the vast minority of people on this planet, right? Only less than 5% of people claim that no God exists. So when you say something like, we all know no God exists, that is either the most ridiculous hyperbole or the height of ignorance, because it flies in the face of everything we actually do know about humanity. Theists just reject the truth in their unrighteousness. All right, first of all, if you're an atheist, you don't believe in righteousness. It has been revealed to all sound mind through mind, natural, and special revelation. Is that English? It has been revealed to all of sound mind through mind, natural, and special revelation. Please try rewriting that. Oh, okay. Through mind, through both natural. Don't take that serious. It's just a joke, a parody of we all know God exists in our hearts. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. You sound like a religious atheist. I'm not even sure what to do about that. Yeah. Most atheists are pretty religious about their faith in random meaningless chance creating all known matter and purpose. And in cutting of stones to set them, and carving of timber to work in all manner of workmanship. And I, behold, I have given with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. And in the hearts of all that are wise-hearted, I have put wisdom, that they may make all that I have commanded thee. The tabernacle of the congregation, and the ark of the testimony, and the mercy seat that is thereupon, and all the furniture of the tabernacle, and the table and his furniture, and the pure candlestick with all his furniture, and the altar of incense, and the altar of burnt offering with all his furniture, and the laver and his foot, and the clothes. This is all stuff that was described on how to build it in the previous chapter. And the anointing oil and the sweet incense for the holy place, according to all that I have commanded thee shall they do. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, honestly, that all feels like it should have been part of the previous chapter. Sometimes I wonder why they broke the chapters up where they did. Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, verily, my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord. Sorry about that. That doth sanctify you. Ye shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Every one that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doth any work on the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. Good stuff. Yeah, what was it? So in the previous chapter, they built the sacrifice, the altar of sacrifice, and then after that, they had the purification laver, and then after that, they had the incense, the whatever of incense, the little, 1.5 4.5 square incense table thing. What did Missler say about how it's like you had to have the sacrifice first, then you had to be cleansed, and then you had to use offer up the incense, which is the prayers that reach up to the Lord. That's kind of like the one stage after the other, and it was built in that order and then placed in that order, so that you have to do these things before you can get to the holy, and then you offer your prayers, and you have to be washed, you have to be cleansed lest you die, then offer your prayers, and then they could go to the Holy of Holies where God's presence was. So it was very much it didn't lay it out, as in it didn't speak to the order, but it was in order. I don't know if that makes sense. It didn't make a point of it. It's something you had to notice when you were reading through it. Tabernacle. No, the altar of incense. Sorry. Hold on a second. I'm gonna start getting messages. Come on, not now. I still struggle with the ideas of ritual and ceremony in worship versus personal relationship with God. How do you mean you struggle? How do you mean? Hold on, I'm just going to mute this and I'll get back to her. Mute notifications for a while. All right. Still struggle with the ideas of ritual and ceremony in worship versus personal relationship with God. Well, all of this ritual stuff for the Jews, and again, this is for the Jews. This is a covenant with the Jews. This wasn't a covenant for all mankind, because the law is written in our hearts, not on stone, tablets of stone. But they were all a precursor and a foreshadow of Christ, right? Christ's mission, Christ's sacrifice, everything that Christ fulfilled in the law. I am come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. That's what he means by fulfilling it. It's like all of this stuff points to him and represents him and foreshadows him. And so he is that fulfillment. So yeah, the personal relationship, you can do the ritual stuff, but its purpose has been served. It's fulfilled in Christ. So the personal, why? Because Christ wants your personal relationship. The only thing that I can think of, I mean, besides the law is perfect. So especially keep the moral parts of the law. Because in that the law has a punishment, right? But the punishment has been paid. Christ paid the punishment, but that does not lessen the point of the law. In fact, he broadened the point of the law so that it's like the guardrails, right? Don't commit adultery. It's like Jesus says, no, don't even think about it. Right? Don't even think about it. Don't even let the thoughts of adultery enter into your mind, into your heart. Not just don't do the deed. The deed has the punishment of the law. Without punishment, there is no law. That's kind of what he means by, the law. We're not in the law, under the law, because the punishment for the law has been paid already by Christ. So it's done. But that doesn't mean the law is wrong. I mean, it doesn't mean the point of the law is wrong. The point of the law is right. Don't steal, don't kill, don't adulterize, don't even think about adulterizing. Don't even hate your neighbor. Don't even, covet stuff. That's putting the law in your heart rather than having the law there as prescribed as having a punishment for breaking it. So the rituals and the ceremonies, that all also pointed to Christ. I'm trying to think if there's anything beyond when we break bread, doing communion. And honestly, to me, I believe, hey, Holy Feeds, God bless you too. I believe communion wasn't meant to be a quote unquote ritual. I believe communion, because Jesus doesn't say once a week, do this in remembrance of me. He says every time you do this. What was he doing? Breaking bread with other believers, with believers. Every time you break bread in remembrance of me. He didn't say, ritual. He didn't say, ceremony. He said, every single time you break bread, remember me. Think about me every time you eat a milk dud. Every time you crack a Coke, every time you take a sip of coffee. Do this in remembrance of me. I think that's far more useful, right? Not doing, I understand like the doing it, and when you're doing it in communion with the church and all that stuff, I understand the value of it. I'm not dismissing the value of it. I just really think that his greater point was like, always remember me, right? Communion is a reminder and a mystery. Well, I don't believe in the whole this is transubstantiated into the flesh of a human being. I just that doesn't make no sense. That don't make no sense. I do believe Christ can be symbolic, right? God doesn't have wings, but the Bible says that Jesus spreads his wings over his split. Now, I know what the Bible says, but God doesn't have wings. He's not a chicken. Heck, he doesn't have hands. I mean, Jesus has hands, but he's not a human being. We are not Mormons. Think of me. My thoughts for you are greater than the stars and the sand. Yes. The church I went to for years celebrated the biblical feasts, not as ritual, but to honor Jesus' gift to us. Yeah. See, there's nothing wrong with doing the feasts, and there's nothing wrong with doing the ceremony if you want to do the ceremony. It's just don't consider it like when they were doing it, they're like, this is not just ceremony, this is law, right? It's like, you must do this. This is our covenant. It is the covenant, but it's a covenant of the children of Israel. I mean, I'm Japanese. My dad's from northwestern Europe primarily, so I don't fall under the children of Israel covenant. I fall under the new covenant, paid for in the blood of our Savior. Holy Feeds, welcome. You got anything to add? Questions? The ritual stuff gives you authority, legitimacy, and in turn, money. Yeah. I mean, doesn't everything get corrupted? Isn't that kind of the Arlene says, John Mintz, now post-cross, we don't need the ceremonies, but many churches use them as a reminder and to honor what Jesus did. Yeah, I got no problem with communion. Like churches doing communion. I think that's probably great. I think that's the thing that does kind of sidetrack me on. I think it's a little more than just every time you eat, because it does say if you do this, but you're not, I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing really badly, that basically if you don't believe and you take communion, then you're damned or whatever, anathema. I don't remember the words. But so in that sense, there is something very peculiar to that that idea of communion. So I could be wrong about this, but to me, I do think there's a greater. That's why we say grace, right? To me, grace is communion, because we're praying, we're thinking of Christ, we're praying to Christ, and we're appreciating what He's given us as we're breaking bread or eating curry or chopping steak, you know. It's good churches do communion, because that's, for many, that's all the communion they get. Oof. That's too bad. The mysteries of church are kind of non-negotiable, though. The mysteries of church. Tell me what you mean. Tell me what you mean. I don't understand literalists. I don't understand what you mean by literalists, John. Joe, isn't that a quote from Martin Luther? What did Joe say? Communion is a mystery. Holy feeds. Oh, yeah, we'll see you. Oh, not tomorrow. It's Friday. Friday. We'll see you on Monday, Arlene. The mysteries is the terminology. Again, I'm not a theologian, Joe. You're gonna have to give me a little bit more explanation. Explanazione, which is probably not a word. Literalist, Luke, like you said about Jesus having wings. Oh, that kind of literal. Yeah. I mean, look, Jesus uses hyperbole. You know, baptism, marriage, communion, etc. Those are the mysteries? Oh, really? I've never heard them described like that. Interesting. This week flew by. Oh man, when you're as old as we are, Tina, every week flies by. I remember when you're a kid and you just couldn't wait, like, to get to Saturday. And I was like, it takes so long. Time is relative. Time is relative. Marriage is a mystery. That's the term, sacred mystery. Huh. That's new to me, buddy. That's new to me. I mean, I think I've heard the term before, but I don't think I don't know what it related to. The mysteries of the scriptures. Ollie Pong says, Mike, through some research, Joseph is described before with having the Spirit of God in Genesis 41:38. All right, Genesis 41:38. Let's go. Genesis 41:38. Oh, yeah. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such as one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? Although that is Pharaoh saying it. And I'm that's Pharaoh. And I would say that Joseph is obviously filled with the Spirit. All right. He's described that way by Pharaoh. That works. But this is, to my knowledge, the first time the Bible specifically says God is filling someone with the Spirit of God. But I take your point. And I could be wrong. I'm not a theologian. Don't listen to me, guys. Look this stuff up for yourself and show me that I'm wrong, like Ollie Pong just did. All right. Somebody ban Ollie from the channel. No, just kidding. I know, Mike. It's ridiculous. Remember how long summer lasted? I know. Man, when you're a kid and you've only got 12 years of your life so far, I mean, look, when you're 12, a year is a 12th of your entire life. All right. When you're 53, a year is 1/53rd of your entire life. So it's like more information gets, I don't know how the whole time is relative worth thing. Just really. Yeah. I'll just start, Chuck says, I'll just start posting Wesley Huff memes to troll you. That wouldn't troll me. I'd love that. I love Wesley Huff. I love that guy. He's awesome. And I think it's crazy because what's his face? Mel Gibson was on yesterday's Joe Rogan podcast, which I know, at least from listening to the podcast, it sounds like it was recorded after the Wes Huff podcast. Oh, snap. No, that one was live. So that's what was weird about the Wes Huff one, because it was recorded, but then it wasn't dropped. And like they held on to it for some reason. But Mel Gibson was talking about the fires. So it was recorded. It must have been recorded yesterday and then dropped. Interesting. But that means it seems like every time Joe has some sort of Christian on there, and Mel Gibson's like this weird Catholic who's, I don't want to say weird Catholic. I mean, like, he's a Catholic, but he doesn't believe in the modern Catholic Church. I think he said like everything post Vatican II is like screwy or something. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was very much also witnessing to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's gonna just have like all these Christians next. He's gonna have Mark Wahlberg on, I bet, and then Mark Wahlberg, and like all these Christian guys are gonna come on, and eventually Joe Rogan will bend the knee. He's a truth seeker, and I believe because he is seeking the truth, eventually he will find it. Any of you guys watch Sam Shamoon? I really like Sam Shamoon, but in a sense, I don't like Sam Shamoon. He's an apologist, and he's very, very good at dealing with Muslims because he knows the Quran. I've been waiting for the Jason Lyle episode for years. Sam went Catholic. I was surprised. Yes, and he uses bad reasoning when he's defending the Virgin Mary argument too. I posted a response in a comment section, and he never responded to it because he was saying, like, he made this argument that, like, if the Virgin wasn't the Virgin, then you would have heard arguments about it from the early church fathers. And then I went and looked it up. I'm like, what was the first time the Virgin Mary was even written about? And it was like in the mid to late 2nd century. So 250 to 300 AD. And I'm like, all of the early church fathers were dead by the time the concept of the Virgin Mary or the perpetual virginity of the perfect Mary, whatever you call it in Catholicism, by the time that doctrine evidences itself in history, all of the early church fathers are dead. So there is no reason any of the early church fathers would have condemned an idea that hadn't come out yet. So his argument, that's why he believes, because the early church fathers didn't say it wasn't so. It's like, you don't argue something. It would be like it'd be like being, why didn't Jesus talk about evolution? It's like, But no, I like Sam's really good at that other stuff. But something that kind of drives me nuts is whenever somebody disagrees with him, and they're another Christian, he calls them like, son of Satan and blah 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 and all this just very derogatory stuff about stuff that he agreed about when he wasn't a Catholic. And he did the same thing about stuff he agreed about when he was a Calvinist. So I'm just like, I just want to confront him and be like, that when you were casting satanic aspersions at fellow believers, when you were what you now consider wrong, acting as if you were doing it in the Spirit of God, clearly you have not learned any humility from realizing that you were wrong and realizing that you shouldn't treat people who are fellow believers in Christ as Satanists just because they disagree with the position you now hold, which you previously would have scolded yourself as being demonic if the current you had been arguing with the past you. So a teaspoon of humility would go a long way in broadening this guy's witness. I mean, it's fine when he does it against Muslims because they literally are the religion of Satan. But to do it to fellow believers because you know what? This is why Protestants and Catholics freaking killed each other for hundreds of years, because of ideas like that. Jones. Hello, Jones. It's a new fellow. I'm new and exploring religions. Why should I become a Christian? You should become a Christian because of all of the world religions, and I've done this research myself. You can do this research yourself. There's only one holy book, holy writ, that can prove to be written from outside of time. I say from outside of time and space because if it's outside of time, it essentially, like scientifically, time space is a thing. So if you're outside of time, you have to be outside of space as well. So the only holy writ that proves itself to be written from outside of time and space are the biblical texts. And I say that, and it sounds crazy to a new believer or to a new person seeking stuff. And I get it. I was raised agnostic. It sounded crazy to me too. But I tested all those claims, and I'm not going to sit here and prove it to you. I would implore you to run that test yourself. Check out the claims of prophetic revelation, the claims of prophetic accuracy in the Bible. Note that in Deuteronomy 18, God proclaims, or the Bible proclaims, that if someone says that they're speaking for God and they can't tell you the future accurately, then you are to kill them. So the bar for someone in the biblical texts claiming to be a prophet is you get it right 100% of the time or they kill you. So it's not a job that most people would be like, I'm gonna go be a fake prophet, because they'll kill you. Now you can go be a fake prophet in Mormonism or in Islam, or actually I don't think the Buddha even claimed to be from outside of time or know anything outside of time. But I went, when I discovered this as an agnostic, and then I tested those prophecies, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I like literally can't deny these are true. Somehow or another, these were written from outside of time. You have to, at that point, you have to decide. I had really two options. Either it's authored by the Spirit of God that claims authorship, or it's authored by some sort of time traveling alien that whose whole sole purpose was to fool the world into being better people. I went with the God one. You could make your own decisions on that. But then, because I was like, oh, okay, now I have a measurement for how to know if something was written from God. So I went and I looked at all of the claims from all of the other world religions, even like Nostradamus, like anyone that claimed to be able to tell the future. I went and did a search for that, because it's like when you read, you come to discover you have a favorite author. It's like, wow, what else have you written? No, I could find nothing else. If you can find something, let me know. I'd be down with listening or hearing about that. So to me, that's what I did. If you would do that research for yourself, I mean, I can offer you, I can point you in directions, but really it's like when you do your own research and you come to your own conclusions, you are more, you don't feel like you're being staged. You don't feel like you're being coached into believing stuff. So if you're truly seeking, you will find. Joan says, thanks for the insight. I'm very aware that a lot of prophecies in the Bible are pretty vague, and aware that for a prophecy claimed to be considered to be true, the cause needs to be demonstrated. Well, okay, I'll just tell you, there's one, sorry, I'm over time already, but there's one specific prophecy in the book of Ezekiel that it denotes, it's like a mathematical equation. It says this many years are 360 days in Judaism. From this date in time, which is the order to rebuild, I think the order to rebuild Jerusalem, I think by Cyrus the Great. And we know that date in history, date in time. And then I don't know, that I'd call naming Cyrus vague. Yeah. So from that date in time to the rebirth of Israel, first of all, it didn't happen in that span of time, because there was another equation that had to be plugged in that nobody discovered until the 80s, because that was like, it would be like the one prophecy that had failed. Right? But there is a how do you say it, a doctrine, maybe doctrine's not the right word, but there's a thing in the Bible where over and over and over again God tells the Jews, if you do not obey me, I will multiply your punishment by 7. It's like literally adding an equation to the equation. So this dude in the 80s, I think it was like 1984 or something like that. He's looking at this unfulfilled prophecy and he's like, what would happen if I just took that number and I multiplied it by 7? You know where that took him? From the date Cyrus gave the order, it took him all the way and exactly to May 14th, 1948, the date that Israel was born again in a single day. That is not vague. That's one of the prophecies. That one and the prophecy of Tyre will blow your mind. Look into these things. Lots of religions make prophecy claims, and a lot of them count the hits and ignore the misses. A lot of them don't actually make a lot of prophecy claims. You'll be surprised. There's very little prophetic claiming in other religions. I can think Nichiren Daishonin in what I would probably call Western Buddhism, the Buddhism that took over a lot of Japan. He claimed that the Mongols, he prophesied that the Mongols would try to invade Japan and fail. And this is like the closest thing I can think of that actually it was right. But at the same time, the Mongols were trying to take over everywhere. It's a little bit like being in, being in France after Germany has already taken over Austria and Poland, and prophesying that Germany's probably going to invade France. But the Mongols didn't have ships that could get them across the sea, and the ships were like knocked out by the waves, or by a storm. Oh yeah, Tyre, wasn't it supposed to be destroyed and never be a city again? It was never to be rebuilt. Do you know what Tyre was before it was destroyed? Tyre was like New York City. It was like Manhattan Island. It had 300-foot tall walls all the way around it. It was an impenetrable fortress. It was the trading capital of the ancient world. And no one for centuries and centuries could defeat it or enter it without permission. And it was Alexander the Great who fulfilled the prophecy that Tyre would be torn down and thrown into the sea, never to be rebuilt. It is such a specific prophecy, because what did Alexander the Great do? He built a causeway from the land of Tyre to the island of Tyre, so that Tyre is if you look at a map today, Tyre is no longer an island. Tyre is a peninsula. You know what that peninsula is built out of? It's built out of the ruins of the city, because Alexander the Great took those 300-foot tall. Think how tall 300 feet is. That's a skyscraper. That's how tall the walls of Tyre were. And he built a causeway so he could get to the city, because you couldn't attack it by sea, because the walls were so tall and you just couldn't do anything. So they built this causeway. Alexander the Great did. He tore down the entire city and all the buildings, and those bricks and those stones and everything that connected Tyre the island to Tyre the mainland. And to this day, it's a peninsula. It is a fishing village. And that was part of the thing. It'll be a place where fishermen dry their nets. And to this day, that's what it is. It was never rebuilt, and it never will be. I've read it and listened to Hitchens speak on it as well. I love Hitchens. Hitchens is great. That's pretty good. You didn't know that, Amy? Yeah, Tyre and the Ezekiel prophecies are the two strongest ones that convinced me. This is some legit stuff, because all the I grant you, like, there's 300 something prophecies about Christ, but if you're being skeptical, you can say, well, all of those prophecies, if you're being like super skeptical and you just don't believe history, or you don't believe the Gospels, you don't believe, for whatever reason, you are biased against the historical accounts of the Gospels, then you can't use the Bible to prove the Bible in that sense. But the history of Tyre is not biblical history. The prophecy is biblical. The event is secular and is written in secular history. And then the same, likewise, the Ezekiel prophecy is biblical. The event, we have it on TV. I can grab you video. Right? I heard the new Tyre isn't on the original location. Well, I mean, you can see the Tyre the way it was and the Tyre the way. Ancient map of Tyre. Let me see if I can find anything. So I am way over time, guys. So here's ancient Tyre. As you can see, they even put the wall all the way around it, the harbors, whatever. And then Alexander built this little causeway, right? And then he scraped all of this city into the sea to become this coastline. all of this coastline is made of the city of Tyre. It's pretty based. I mean, that's that's an interesting workaround. What's an interesting workaround? But all prophecy considered, the cause ultimately needs to be demonstrated. The cause of what? The cause of how somebody wrote. Oh wait, were the causes demonstrated? What do you? I'm not sure what I know what you mean by. Right. Hey, the Discord link is in the description. I got to wrap this show up, but feel free to drop into the Discord and continue the conversation. The cause of how the prophecy came true. Which one? Alexander the Great didn't know about the biblical prophecy until they showed it to him when he was on his way through Israel. I don't remember where he was going. Probably Babylon or something. I don't know. He was going through Israel and they showed it to him. That's why Alexander the Great's the one who commissioned the Septuagint. Alexander the Great didn't commission the Septuagint to be written into Koine Greek out of the goodness of his heart. They showed him the prophecy of what he had already done to Tyre and in some like freaking 300-year-old scroll. And he's like, holy crap, I just did that. And so he commissioned, rather than destroying and taking over Israel, he commissioned 70 scholars from Judea to go to Greece and translate all the biblical texts into Koine Greek. And then that's why the Septuagint ultimately became the Bible that was read by everybody at the time Christ was. This was 300 years before Christ. The cause of any prophecy, even if it's granted that it's on the mark, the cause of why it became true needs to be demonstrated. Well, that was my point. I unless you can come up with a third reason. To me, if it's from outside of time, it has to be a time traveler or it has to be God. If you can come up with a third reason, I'd love to hear it. And then what would the motivation of a time traveler be to go back in time and create the Bible? Not just create the Bible, but the Bible was written over the span of over 1,500 years. So this time traveler would have to go back and prove himself to all 66 different authors that claim to be prophets of God, and probably more even than that. So the guy would probably have to be not just a time traveler, but immortal. So at some point you have to accept it's either something like that, which is more probably science fiction than anything else, or just accept that the author is who the author claims to be. And I'll just leave that to you. I mean, you're asking me why you should choose Christianity or what religion you should choose. That's what I'm telling you. Like if somebody knows a thing and works to make it come true, that's not prophecy. Essentially, retrofitting prophecy isn't prophecy. Right. That's why it's interesting that the fulfillment of the Ezekiel prophecy wasn't discovered until 40 years after it had happened. Adding that the multiplier of the 7x wasn't discovered until the 80s. Tyre, though, was rebuilt. You know what? That'd be like saying if you scraped Manhattan down to the ground and then they put a Kmart there, you'd say, look, they rebuilt Manhattan. No. And Alex didn't level the city. All right, Joe, drop it in the Discord. I don't have time. It's 1:14 already. We're 15 minutes over. So the island nation of Tyre wasn't. It was the island nation. All right. Drop it in Discord. Guys, we'll see you on Monday. God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you all in the next exciting episode of Cross-Examination.
Back in line, you dog! On your feet! Get them going!